You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There's a PayPal button on our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for the week of December 23rd, 2022. It's not safe for work.
Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where we still haven't been banished from Twitter, so we got that going for us. It's The Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal.
And we had an alternative opening.
Would you like to hear it?
Yeah, I think we should share it with everybody.
Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where we're conducting a Twitter poll to decide if I should step down as the CEO of The Professional Left. It's The Professional Left with podcast. Sorry, I blew it. See, I can't do it.
See, take two. No, we're just going to leave it in.
I can't do 2 shows a night. I cannot do 2 shows a night.
You can't do 2 openings in one show. It just won't work.
It's a lot of pressure on this poor guy who's about to lose his job as CEO.
I don't know what's worse, the Twitter poll or the idea that The Professional Left has a CEO.
Yeah. Well,
you couldn't possibly have a worse CEO than Elon Musk, though.
No. We have 2 officers in our company. And,
we do. And we have to call them president and co-president or something. Right. I don't know what.
And if I step down,
know what we call ourselves.
You're kind of screwed there, darling. So, you know. Yeah, you're this is me, Tony Stark, turning the company over to Pepper.
There you go.
You can run it way better than I can.
Well, thank you. We all do our part. Driftglass is definitely the talent in the trailer, however.
Well, and I'm deep in the trailer now. It's late at night. By the way, we are recording this earlier in the week, just after the Monday hearing, because I'll be largely out of commission on our regular podcast day. I might still be on the good drugs, but as entertaining as it might be to hear me proclaim my love for everybody, David Brooks and Glenn Greenwald are the greatest people I ever met. I'm sorry to ever say anything bad about them. We decided that recording early was the better part of valor.
Yeah,
so we're recording
just to guarantee us that we would have a show that actually made any sense to all of you out there.
You know, honey, until today, I never really listened to Charlie Sykes. I never really,
Did you really listen to the Bulwark?
What he was trying to say. Matt Taibbi makes a lot of sense.
No. We're not doing that podcast. No, I'm not editing that podcast. That's for sure. No. But Driftglass is just fine.
I'm fine.
He's fine. He's just having some diagnostic testing done, and he's fine. Everything's fine.
Some suspicion that I might be 80% Grinch, and I'm going in for one of those Grinch tests that you hear so much about.
Why they decided they could do this the 23rd of December, the 22nd of December is just...
Hey, Merry Christmas, baby.
Merry Christmas, yeah. Whatever, fine, okay.
That's fine. Anyway.
But hey, the January 6th committee did meet.
Yeah,
and they voted on Monday to refer former so-called President Donald Trump to the Department of Justice on 4 criminal charges. Mm-hmm. It was also announced that it will refer 4 Republican members of the House to the Congressional Ethics Committee for failing to comply with committee subpoenas, including prospective Speaker Kevin McCarthy.
And he's only prospective at this point because who knows what tomorrow will bring.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know, maybe they should conduct a Twitter poll.
Yeah, that's a great idea because those are highly scientific.
You know, never a problem with the results of those, right? The 3 other House members, by the way, are, a bunch of winners, let me tell you. Referred to the Ethics Committee are Jim Jordan, Republican of Ohio, Andy Biggs, Republican of Arizona, and Scott Perry, Republican of Pennsylvania. You know, his text came out, and boy, I wouldn't want to be him. But, they're all in very safe districts.
That's right.
In the introduction to its final report, the committee states that, quote, meaning these congressmen, willful non-compliance violates multiple standards of conduct and subjects them to discipline.
Yeah.
It's not going to subject them to discipline in a Republican-dominated House of Representatives.
Well, you know what could help if they just had ranked choice voting in the House, then something Elon Musk, something CEO. I mean, that would solve. I have been told that
ranked choice voting for ethics charges.
Sure, why not? You know, the top 2 ethics charge getters move on to the final round where they punch it out and nothing ever happens. So, yeah.
Another thing that happened in the House of Representatives over the past week since we last podcasted is Adam Kinzinger gave a floor speech.
He did.
In which he said, all of my Republican colleagues are garbage.
He did.
And only Democrats are great. No, wait, he didn't say that, did he?
He gave a heroic farewell, the better part of valor speech. I now move on with the rest of my life, and now I belong to the ages. Which you might have heard in 30-second clips, which are all heroic, and him speaking to an empty house, which happens all the time. However, you might be surprised to learn that in between those quippy little 30-second quips about Republicans are scum and the party of Lincoln is broke my heart, after scolding Republicans as democracy-hating scum, Mr. Kinzinger made a hard pivot to the both sides do it claptrap. Now, of course, if you've even a passing understanding and familiarity with his record, you wouldn't be surprised by this. But for the record, I'm going to run through a few of the things he said, and then something that really made me go, I wonder why he did that, and then answer my own question. The most striking sentence in his long address was, to my Democratic colleagues, you must too bear the burden of our failures.
What?
Yes. Resistance hero Adam Kinzinger really said Democrats are to blame for Trump and all this shit too.
Jeez.
Now, why must I personally and you personally bear the burden of the complete collapse of his Republican Party into the shit pile of racism and paranoia that we've always said was right under the surface? Because, Blue Gal, Democrats did politics to win elections in 2022, and we shouldn't have done that. Kinzinger asks, many of you have asked me, where are all the good Republicans? To which Driftglass replies, there aren't any good Republicans, Adam. Don't you know that? Have you met Republicans? You're all awful. But I wasn't there, so I couldn't say that. Mr. Kinzinger continues, over the past 2 years, mind you, all this problem started 2 years ago, Democratic leadership had the opportunity to stand above the fray, which means Adam Kinzinger is actually furious that Democrats worked to get Democrats elected. Democratic leadership should have stayed above the fray, not gotten involved, in getting Democrats elected. That was unfair.
That's
Yeah, he's full of shit. He is just as hollow and shallow and tiny as everyone thought he was. He had a big moment, but he's blown that moment, and I'll explain how he blew it in a minute. He continues, instead that'd be Democrats, poured millions of dollars into the campaigns of MAGA Republicans, the same candidates President Biden called a threat, to ensure these good Republicans did not make it out of their respective primaries. I've already written about this extensively elsewhere, but the upshot is, what he's saying is that Democrats spent a little bit of money in Republican primaries saying the truth about those candidates. They didn't lie, they didn't bamboozle them. They said, this guy is too conservative for our state. Here's his record. He's way out there. He's too conservative for our state. That was it. Those are the Democratic ads. And apparently this caused an epidemic of fainting couch collapses all across the Beltway because, oh my God. And it came to 13 Republican primaries. It wasn't 30, it wasn't 300, it was 13 primaries out of hundreds of them. And Democrats, as I cannot stress this enough, did nothing more than honestly state the wingnut record involved. He's pro-abortion, he's a gun nut, he's too conservative for this state. And nobody put a gun to their heads. And guess what happened, Blue Gal? In 6 of those 13 cases, the nut job won.
Yep.
Because Republican voters like crazy people, Adam. They love their crazy. They want to find the craziest one and vote for them, which is something that makes Adam very embarrassed because he'd rather blame Republican leadership and Donald Trump and my colleagues let me down rather than the fact that your entire party from top to bottom is fucking awful. That's something that he does not want to talk about. So in all 6 cases, Democratic campaign professionals took the threat posed by the Republican Party so seriously that they figured out a way to get Democrats elected in swing districts that were leaning Republican. They fucking won. They won. The red wave was stopped, and Adam Kinzinger is furious about this.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go on. Quoting Mr. Kinzinger, this is no longer politics as usual. This is not a game. If you keep stoking the fire, you can't point your finger when our great experiment goes up in flames. So Democrats figured out a way to win by not staying above the fray and stopping the red wave, and he's bitching about it as he walks out the door. And then he continues, unfortunately, there are too few Republicans and Democrats that have the spines to stand up and put country over party. What he means is too few Democrats are willing to step out of the way and let people like me just run uncontested and keep my job.
Right.
And that is not how grown-ups do things. One more thing I would like to mention, Mr. Kinzinger said, when one party's megaphone echoes calls for civil war, okay, I'm with you so far. I know which party you're talking about, Adam, and the other tacitly and in some cases openly supports it, we are clearly lost, Mr. Speaker. I don't recall any of the Democratic megaphones, whoever the hell they are, calling for civil war, but Adam Kinzinger apparently remembers this. And here's the thing. He's been doing this forever.
Yeah.
Go back 7 years to his record. Go back to his speeches from nearly a decade ago, and you will find him saying, Republicans, please don't be like the left and drag this country backward. He really hates liberals, and he always has because he's a Republican. Now, here's where my question begins. Adam Kinzinger was redistricted in Illinois. Now, I don't know if you understand this, but redistricting does not mean you were subjected to a disintegration ray and you disappeared from reality altogether. It simply means you were nudged into a different district. So Adam Kinzinger could have run. Now, 10 years ago, he complained on a podcast some time ago that he ran in a brutal brother against brother podcast 10 years ago, and he never wanted to do that again against brother Republican. But here's the thing.
He was saying that he wanted to run unopposed from now on.
Exactly. I want to run unopposed. I don't want to run against Republicans in the primary. Somehow it's unfair to make me run against a Republican. All right, fuck you for that. But the thing is, he got redistricted into a district where a guy named Darren LaHood is the U.S. representative. He's a Republican. And Darren LaHood is everything Adam Kinzinger hates about his party. Everything. He refused to vote for impeachment twice. He gave a speech, or rather a press release about what a complete waste of time, and there's never been a more trivial impeachment ever in the history of America, and Democrats just are witch-hunting monsters. He voted with the Texas vote to not endorse the election, to sue against the election, to falsify it. He voted, all the shitty things you can do to vote, he did.
Yep.
This is the guy that Adam Kinzinger said is the problem with his party. So into Adam Kinzinger's lap falls an opportunity to take up the flaming sword of Ronald Reagan and purge his party of the very people he says are fucking it up right in his own backyard.
Yep.
Adam Kinzinger has all the money he wants. He has a massive national platform, much bigger media platform than Darren LaHood. And Darren LaHood's a bad guy. And what did Adam Kinzinger do? He curled up in the corner, whined about Democrats not letting him win when they're supposed to do that, and walked out the door bitching that both sides do it. And that's why I know Adam Kinzinger is a shallow, petty man. Now, the other consideration is two things. One, he would have lost.
Oh,
and he would have lost big. LaHood won that district by 70 points or 70% last election. And you know why he would have lost? Because Republicans like crazy assholes. That's something that Adam can't wrap his brain around. His party loves people like that. And so he would have lost and embarrassed himself. But the second reason is the LaHood family is a prominent Illinois Republican family. His daddy, Darren LaHood's daddy, Ray LaHood, was in the Illinois House and in the Congress for like 20 years. And he was Barack Obama's Secretary of Transportation, I believe. So this is a big deal in Illinois. That name is not quite up there with the big three or the big four, but it's a powerful Illinois family. And if Kinzinger had run, he would have lost badly, and he would have had to run against him like Liz Cheney ran against Harrigan in Wyoming by calling her, a Trump-loving scum, and he would have lost, and he would have burned the bridges with all the Illinois godfathers, all the Illinois mucky mucks in the Republican Party would have looked at him and said, "You ran against LaHood's kid," and he called him a traitor, and so he'd have no future in Illinois politics. So what did he do? He decided, Blue Gal, both sides are really to blame. Both sides. And like, fuck you, man. Fuck you. You were given a golden opportunity to actually walk the talk you're always talking. To walk
your talk, yes.
And you decided to punk out. You wouldn't man up and do the right thing. And Liz Cheney did. I fucking hate Liz Cheney, but she ran a campaign against a monster and lost and made it about Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Kinzinger could have done exactly the same thing, but he'd rather have a job either in future in Illinois politics or on cable news than, do the right thing and go out like a man. Anyway, that's the end of that story. Mm-hmm.
I think, Driftglass, that in 2023 we're going to have to do some Science Fiction University episodes to justify the tax deduction on our streaming services.
Yeah, I think we do.
In the meantime, I'd like to say we are enjoying Slow Horses on Apple Plus. Mm-hmm. We also enjoyed The English. That's not for everybody. That's a violent show.
It is. Really good show.
That's on Netflix. Mm-hmm. That was really interesting show. Mm-hmm. And Kindred, which is science fiction.
Right.
And would you talk just for a minute about Kindred?
Yeah. We're probably going to do a show that compares Kindred to Foundation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because, we talked about Foundation and Science Fiction University before, but there are like a bunch of sacred texts in science fiction, sort of the canonical works, great works. And the works of Octavia Butler, to my mind, of course, are among them. Kindred is an amazing novel by her. It was followed up by The Parable of the Sower, which I think she's probably better known for. Kindred is about, I'm not spoiling anything, about a black woman in an interracial marriage in the 70s who is spontaneously and with no explanation at all yanked back into the past and tossed into a plantation in the slave-owning South in the early 1800s, pre-Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
And
very early 1800s.
Very early.
Yeah.
Very, very early. She has no explanation for this. She is completely unfit. She has no skills that are applicable to that location. And she is a proud adult woman from the 1970s who must act like a submissive slave to survive in the 1800s. It's a wonderful story. And Octavia Butler was great about really talking about the tangled history of lineage and the fact that your proud family has a rapist in the past.
Yeah.
And the fact that if that didn't happen, you wouldn't be here. And what does that mean for the tendrils of history? It's not easy science fiction. It's not space opera. It's really good. And she's a brilliant writer, was a brilliant writer. And we plan to talk extensively about the changes that were made to the plot that I don't think take anything away from it.
But in the Hulu show.
In the Hulu show.
Yeah, because they did make some changes to it.
They did.
To the book, sure.
But the core of the plot, unlike Foundation, the central idea of the story was not like altered.
I remember watching Foundation with you, Driftglass, and the look on your face sometimes was like, "What?
Did you read the book?
Did you read this book before you made this thing and added like clones?" You have clone warriors somehow in this.
Clone emperors. You have clone emperors.
Clone emperors. You decided to add. What was your thought process when you decided to add clone emperors?
And weird religious cults, that's all fine. But the whole idea that the empire is falling because of these clone emperors, you're like, no. That's the whole idea of the Foundation trilogy. It is an unstoppable force of history that will bring down the empire. Mm-hmm. And you need to set up a counter organization that can shorten the Dark Ages that are inevitably going to follow. It isn't because some emperor had a bad day or his kid hated his child. No. That's completely wrong. And without that predicate, the Foundation story completely falls apart and all the special effects were great. All the zooming around, planet stuff, all terrific. Doesn't matter. you screwed up the basic premise of the plot.
Well, and I think you and I, we will do a science fiction university on this, but I think we need to talk about how there is a need if you're going to adapt a book from the 1960s or 70s into a premier cable, TV production. I hate the term television event because I don't believe in television events. But if you're going to translate that work into something that people will watch on cable in 2022, there are some things that you will need to do. Special effects, sex, nudity, you'll need to add those things.
Right.
And that's okay. You can do that without destroying the plot of a classic science fiction text.
Right. There's no, in the original book from the 1970s, the protagonist does not have a cell phone. In this one, everybody has a cell phone, but it doesn't matter. They integrate that into the plot very well.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
And they use it. They use the fact that there's this strange technology that is unknown to the people of the 1800s. But it is the same kind of exploration of social cause and effect and the horrors of slavery on a very, very visceral level. That is terrific viewing and good science fiction, and it treats the original text very respectfully. And so comparing source material to movie or television show, I think is very interesting because sometimes it succeeds. I think the first half of Dune was very true to the original.
Amazing.
And so forth. There's several examples, but this is not Science Fiction University, but I think there's a lot.
We just wanted to give you a little preview. That's all. Yeah.
That's good stuff.
That justifies end of year tax deduction for our streaming services.
Check. Let me check that box. Check. Okay, we're done. Good. That's good.
Good. Tell us a little bit about the Elon Musks that you have known throughout your long and varied career, Driftglass.
Yeah, I was in
we
tech
both have. We both have known not people with $44 million to throw away, but we've known people like Elon Musk.
Billion with a B, honey. I've known a lot of 44 million.
Billion with a B. That's right, Lord.
Yeah. I was in tech for a long time. Until bad things happened and I couldn't go back. It was like The Hustler.
They broke your thumbs.
Right. Something happened in Chicago. I can't go back there. I'd rather not talk about it. But it wasn't my fault, and that's a different story for a different day. But I was working at CNA Insurance in Chicago, big red building downtown. As a
can mention that because that company no longer exists.
No, CNA exists.
Oh, it does?
No. Oh, yeah. No. The one I went to after that doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, okay.
But CNA Insurance is a big red building, downtown Chicago. It's changed substantially. What was the movie with Will Ferrell as the writer? Stranger Than Fiction.
Stranger Than Fiction, yeah.
There are scenes in Stranger Than Fiction where he's visiting the counselor that are shot inside of CNA.
Oh, okay.
I know. I absolutely know. I know the floor plan. I worked in there for a number of years as a file clerk, and it was a boring job. But they had a program where they took in-house people, and if you passed a whole bunch of tests and interviews, they would select 16 candidates and train you to be a computer programmer. And I applied for it, and by some miracle, I was selected. And it changed my life. It changed the trajectory of my life. And I learned, and I was really good at it right from the beginning. But they brought in a lot of instructors from from different places, people who knew various subject matter experts to teach us, a week about this and a week about that, and so on and so forth. And one guy they brought in was unbearable.
Oh, no.
He was an IBM assembler programmer. And he was very good at one thing. And he had absolutely zero social skills.
Yeah, I know a lot of people like that, actually.
And I think he said that he wanted to teach classes here because he wanted to learn how to interact with people. I distinctly remember that was his sort of like, well, yeah, the deal was they're going to pay me a lot of money because I'm an IBM programmer, but they're also good. I can learn, sort of practice my people skills, of which he had none.
You have no people skills
at all. And what he taught was assembler. And assembler is a conceptually much harder language to teach than, like, let's say, COBOL. COBOL was just logical English. You had to learn the syntax, but it was logical English. It made sense. Assembler was developed in 1947 and is a system programming language. It's where the programmer is directly moving stuff around inside computer registers. And it's all acronyms and register numbers and adding register A to register B to create register C. And it's very complicated. And if your brain doesn't work that way, you need to learn it, kind of grind your way through it. This guy was there for like a week or two. And during his classes, things that were really obvious to him, he would breeze right past. And
is this the guy who read core dumps with his mom overnight?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this was a guy who his activity with his mother, I believe, who worked for IBM, was to read green bar paper core dumps at home. Mom and I are going to do hexadecimal math at home. And, that's fine. That's great. I know people like that. I am kind of that guy.
Yeah,
but I also have some minimal human interaction skills that serve me well. He had none. And the problem he had was what anyone in class would ask a question like, it's obvious that blah, 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 blah. Rose, I remember a woman named Rose from the class would raise her hand and say, like, I'm sorry, but it's just not obvious to me. And his response was, I'm not a saint, Rose. And just bark at her.
Oh my gosh, poor Rose.
It was cringy, and it was grueling, and he was terrible at it. And we sort of had to do study groups to sort of help each other along. But it was just like, this guy was a fucking lunatic. Yeah. And
which brings us to Elon Musk.
The only way I got through that little period, that course, that portion of the course was I noticed that the test data he was using were all characters from E. Doc Smith's Lensman series.
Oh, Lord.
Or 1940s and 30s and 50s science fiction novels. I'm like, hey, isn't that Harry Seldon? Oh, you've read The Foundation too? And suddenly we're in the con suite at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And then we can talk science fiction, and suddenly he's not a bad guy. He just
he has spectrum issues, and he has specific interests that he's willing that turn him into a human being.
Right.
If you're talking about his specific interests, then he can talk to you.
Yes. If not,
and if you aren't, then he doesn't. He sees no need for you in his horizon.
No, at all. And he will bark at you because if it's obvious to him, then it should be obvious to everyone.
Right.
And like you're missing.
He has no empathy.
At all. And you're missing the point of teaching, which you're teaching people to whom the subject matter is inherently not obvious because they don't know it because you're the teacher.
Right.
It was not a pleasant situation. It was long ago and far away. Which brings us to Elon Musk, who is a petulant, single-minded, narcissist tech dude.
And by his own admission, has Asperger's syndrome.
Yes. And so does everyone in our house.
Yeah, pretty much.
That is no excuse for being a monster.
Yeah, that's right.
But I mean, by this point, everyone who listens to this podcast probably knows what a complete jackass, what a complete like shit show his takeover of Twitter has been.
Yep.
And banning people and not banning people. And I just want to single out that during his Twitter Spaces meeting that he had, I think early this week or last week, people brought up banning Twitter users. And he kept impatiently insisting that certain things were categorically obvious and true, which were definitely not categorically obvious and true.
Right.
And when people challenged him on it, he stormed off, shut down the Twitter Spaces conversation, and wiped the existence of it off the Twitter servers.
Because he can.
He threw a little boy tantrum.
Yeah.
And he decided, and then wiped it. And people recorded it. And so it's still out there on the internet. But it's a tantrum throwing tyrant who does. And I used this analogy last week. It's Billy Mooney, and it's a wonderful it's a wonderful day.
Yep.
Or it's a good day. That's right. It's a good day.
It's
the Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone episode.
He will put you in the cornfield unless you agree with him that it's a good day. It's good you did that, Anthony. It's really good that you did that. It's good. And he only responds to people telling him what a good job he's done. And because he is losing money hand over fist, and because he has made a very public asshole of himself, and because he can't ban everyone who doesn't like him, he has instead, one of the things he decided to do was change the violation policy for Twitter to prohibiting, I'm quoting now, "We will remove any free promotion of prohibited third-party social media platforms, such as linking out to any of the below platforms on Twitter or providing your handle without a URL. You're not allowed to mention, follow me on Facebook or Instagram or Mastodon or Truth Social or Tribal or Post or Nostr. That gets you thrown in Twitter jail. He will not let people tell you that other social platforms exist, that you are there, and maybe you should follow me there because I do cool stuff over there. He is flailing, he is failing, and it's all his own goddamn fault.
Yep.
And the right wing loves him, but not so much anymore because they're starting to turn on him just a little bit because he is doing things that, he thought, if I do this, they'll all love me.
They'll all love me.
He just
doesn't understand the social rules. He just doesn't get them. And
he doesn't understand
because they're complicated and not always, not static. So
no, well, he doesn't understand the social part of social media.
Yeah,
which means you probably shouldn't have bought the thing in the first place, which was clearly done on a whim.
Absolutely,
and it's not good. You and I both are present on other social media platforms. I'm at Driftglass at Mastodon. I'm Driftglass.
We have saved Driftglass and Blue Gal at Mastodon and Post.
Yeah.
So, and I'm at newsy.social on Mastodon, and we're both on Post. So, if you want to check that out, we also I have listed those on our Patreon page, and that is public there. So you can go to Professional Left on Patreon. You don't have to be a Patreon to see those if you want to see them.
And Musk is crowdsourcing everything now.
Oh yeah, because that's the way to be popular. If everybody votes for me, then I win, right? Right.
People voted him off the island.
They did.
And it's like, you're aware, right, that Twitter polls are the most unreliable, bot-driven, shitty polls ever.
But he said he would abide by the decision of Twitter, and Twitter said go.
Go. And it's, okay, I'll have to do another poll.
There's one more thing from the hearing. I just want to go back for a minute. There was actually a piece of news. A lot of what was in Monday's hearing was review of the entire 9 hearings that they've had. Hope Hicks, though, they had a quote from Hope Hicks. She said that Trump worried no one would remember him if he lost. Hicks raised concern about Trump tarnishing his legacy with false election claims, and he responded, "I don't care about my legacy. My legacy doesn't matter. If I lose, that will be my legacy."
Mm-hmm.
He was also, there was a text exchange between Hope Hicks and Hogan Gidley about nonviolence. Make sure that he gets on Twitter and preaches that people should be nonviolent. And she said, I brought that up with him for 2 days and he's not interested.
Yeah. No,
so that's another smoking gun.
Mm-hmm. There's a pile of smoking guns big enough to blot the sun out. And what the Justice Department does about it is something for greater minds than mine to contemplate. But obviously, Trump should be in jail.
Trump should be in jail.
Along with a lot of his co-conspirators who were not criminally charged. So
absolutely. Or were not referred for criminal charges by the committee, I think we should say. You told me a story, Driftglass, this week that reminded me so strongly of the extent to which Christmas is a pagan holiday.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And I know Christmas is also a religious holiday. It means different things to different people. We just want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year and any other holiday you celebrate. Have a wonderful one. But this story you told about your sister and your dad and everything, I just thought it was fun.
Yeah.
Would you share it with our audience?
Certainly. Let me begin at the beginning. It all began in 1958 in Colorado. Actually, it did. It began a long time ago in Palmer Lake, Colorado. And in the happy days before my brother and I came along, when my family was happy and well-adjusted. It was my mom and my sister and my dad. And my sister is a child of my mother's previous marriage. But they were all living together in Palmer Lake. I believe they might have been living in a trailer. My dad was a principal. My mom was a teacher at the same school. And my sister went to that school. Small community. And they had a tradition, a Yule log tradition, where they would hide the Yule log up in the mountains somewhere. And people would go out and look for the Yule log. And then they would drag the Yule log down the mountain to an amphitheater or the gymnasium or something. And my sister, being part of the school and of age, girls would come out wearing hoods, red and white hoods, red on the outside, white on the inside, singing the Wassail song. And they would march around and then sing their song. They'd go into the gymnasium. There'd be a bonfire. My dad apparently cooked up a cauldron. My sister described it literally as a cauldron of Wassail, which is cider and apples and oranges and so on and so forth, cooked up in a big, and Wassail means apparently to your good health. It's an old tradition. It goes back to apparently European tradition of marching through the orchards during wintertime, carrying torches to, I guess, bless the trees or revive them or whatever. But it's definitely not a Christian tradition. Mm-hmm. There's no point in the Christian story where people go up to a mountain, pull down a log, have a fire, and drink beverages together. But my dad would brew up a cauldron of this stuff, and whoever found the log would have the first cup, and they'd salute each other and drink to their health, and everybody would have there, be singing and dancing and food and so forth. Then the Christian portion would kick in. But my sister and my brother and I were on Zoom over the weekend together, as we do frequently, and she said, I happened across this program from this thing that we did way back when, which, they were in Palmer Lake for like a minute. They were not there long, but all these decades later, that memory was very strong with her because it involves holidays and smells and singing and festive and so on and happiness. But she had this little program that had her name in it and what was going on, the order of things, and the recipe for traditional wassail.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
And a friend of hers, who's literally like across the valley from her, who has a farm, had quite apart from her, decided he would like to cook up a batch of traditional wassail for the holidays. And like the day after, he goes to the farmer's market. They know each other pretty well. And like the day after that, he's talking about he wants to do a traditional Christmas with traditional this, and I want to cook up a big batch of this stuff. And I get it off the internet. My sister said, well, you do this and this and this. He goes, really? You know how to make this stuff? She goes, yeah, I have a recipe right here from
for heaven's
the
sakes.
50s or early 60s. And she brought it over to him, and he's going to continue the tradition, etc. But it was this clearly, and I guess she looked it up. They're still doing that. They're still doing this ritual, this midwinter ritual in this little town in Colorado. And it is wild to me that, first of all, they remember it. Second of all, that it was so, now I want this stuff. Now I'm kind of thirsty for it. I can't have it.
Yeah, right.
I got to go on clear stuff for a day tomorrow. But in a couple of days, I'll be knocking
After he's
back.
had orange Jello and popsicles for a day, he's going to want wassail.
and that's the other thing you don't want me podcasting as a hungry, grouchy guy.
No,
because you think I'm mad now. Wait till I haven't had food for 24 hours.
Oh God.
But it was this kind of wonderful little surprise where we were literally talking about this pine log that has been passed through my family for 60, 70 years. So you have
the log, like the actual piece of wood.
I do not. I have a pine log that was miter cut and turned into a candle holder. This is about 2 feet long. That'll eventually come to me. But it's been in my family forever. Why that wood hasn't rotted, why it hasn't is a mystery to all of us. But we got to talking about holidays and logs. And my sister said, well, there was this one place in time where they had this very elaborate woodland-based ritual that was clearly Germanic in origin or Norse in origin or something that had nothing to do with the Christian tradition that was welded onto Merry Christmas.
Right.
And she told us the tale, and now I'm telling you.
Like lots of things.
Oh, yeah.
Welded on to the Christian church.
In our adult Sunday school class, we do talk a great deal about how much of modern religion, Christian religion especially, is basically lifted wholesale from whoever they were colonizing at the time.
Right.
Right. We need a female aspect of the deity. Guess what? Mary is now a saint. You know, and she's a virgin, by the way. Did you know that? Oh yeah, she's a virgin. So all of these adaptive things that religions do to win over local population that needs to have that part of the story incorporated. Christmas is full of that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Well, and so happy religious holiday if you celebrate any at all. Happy pagan holiday if that's your thing. But I was pleased to see that there's an official White House menorah.
Yes.
For the first time in history. And this is very symbolic coming this year. This is a big old FU to the trend of anti-Semitism on the right. This I didn't realize. I mean, there have been menorah lightings in the White House over and over again. They borrow a menorah from a temple or from a Jewish member of Congress or whatever. But now there is an official White House menorah. And I am, big on separation of church and state.
Yep.
But again, they have a Christmas tree. They have a White House Christmas tree. Having a menorah is, equal to that in terms of significance and so forth. If you're going to have one, hey, go for it. So NPR reported the 9-pronged candelabra was created by the executive residence carpentry shop out of wood removed from the building in 1950 during a Truman-era renovation. Well, the Truman-era renovation, you and I know about that, and anyone who's seen those photos, they gutted the entire interior of the White House, floors, ceilings, all
out
of it.
Out to the walls, really,
Right back to the walls, put in new floors, put in new wiring, the whole thing, to electrify it, essentially. So various menorahs of special significance have been loaned to the White House over the years, but President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden added the menorah to the permanent White House collection at a Hanukkah reception Monday evening, which will mark the first time a Jewish artifact is added to the White House archives.
Wow.
I just think that's terribly exciting. And
I think it's shameful and exciting.
Yep.
That this is the first artifact added to the permanent collection, and that, it's wonderful.
Well, I told you, it reminds me of Canterbury Cathedral.
Yeah.
Where we used to watch morning prayer in Canterbury Cathedral and found out about the number of glass blowers and sculptors and all the people that are on staff at Canterbury Cathedral to simply keep it restored, because it's a continual process. When something breaks or falls off or whatever, they have to
and have been on staff for centuries. These people have
save the stone and so forth and so on. And the White House is the same way. It has a shorter history, but they have a staff that keeps, preserves all of the wallpaper from different administrations and preserves artifacts and so forth. And here there is I didn't know that there was a executive residence carpentry shop, but of course there has to be, because they have to keep this old building built by slaves. Never forget that. They have to keep it maintained because it's a historical building. So anyway, I thought that was interesting.
Well, and the as I understand it, the resolute desk at which the president sits is made from the timbers of the HMS Resolute.
Oh,
this is a gift from Queen Victoria. I'm looking it up now. To Rutherford B. Hayes. So there's history everywhere, and this is now part of it, and that's a wonderful thing.
Yep.
It does remind me, if you don't mind me, a little digression. There's an episode of Babylon 5.
He's justifying our TV habits again.
I am absolutely, and it's I think first season, but it was like, there's a great deal of all the alien races have their own religion or their faith or their belief or their spirituality, and they're all pretty single. The Minbari believe this, and so on and so on and so on, and they're invited to share their culture's religion, what it means, and the humans are quite not put out, but this is a thing that they want to do. But it's like, what's the human religion? Who will represent the human religion or human faith or human spirituality? And
so they had a war to decide, right?
Yeah, and that was the end of the show. But the end of the show is very well done. Mike Straczynski is a very good writer. There's a long line of people, and the captain goes down. I'd like to introduce you to so-and-so. He's a Baptist minister. I'd like to introduce you to so-and-so. He's a Buddhist monk. I'd like to introduce you to so-and-so. He's a Jewish rabbi. I'd like to introduce you to so-and-so. He's an atheist. And there's just a long line of people. And it's like, this is what it means to be human. to be free to believe all these different things, and you can all be in a room together and not try to murder each other. And this is the the ideal future,
right?
But to represent that, I'm not endorsing any one of them. I am showing you all of them, including the non-believers, because they have every right to be in the same room as everyone else. And this is just who we are. This is what my race is and believes and so forth. And I thought that was a very nice touch. And it does remind me of, you have to include everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody needs to be part of the White House permanent collection of holiday memorabilia.
Because it's we the people.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of religion, one of our very favorite spiritual members of this country, Reverend William Barber, is going to lead a new Center for Public Theology and Public Policy at Yale Divinity School. Axios' Russell Contreras reports the new center includes a partnership with historically Black colleges and universities to build pathways for HBCU students to meaningfully engage in the center's work. Axios writes, Barber is a major figure on the Christian left, and he wants to train a new generation of theologians and activists on the social gospel to fight systemic inequality amid the nation's shifting religious views.
Mm-hmm.
Big applause.
He's 60 years old. He's stepping down from day-to-day ministry in order to do this thing. And I think it's terrific. He's working with college students. It always bothers me when senior members of a group or level of learning or whatever skip over Gen X and Gen Y and go on and, oh no, we're going to help college students. We're going to help my grandchildren do the thing when there are 40 and 50-year-olds and so forth. We're right here.
Stand
right
there.
The work. We've been doing the work,
we're all, we're all princes in waiting and princesses in waiting, just like
forever.
Waiting a long time for our turn at bat, and it looks like you're going with the grandkids. Okay, well that's a bit of a kick in the ass, but we're used to it by now.
But I'm grateful that he's doing this, and this is for sure going to affect the future in a good way. So,
well, and we've always said that liberals need to fight on religious grounds. On the left, the Christian left needs to be a lot louder and a lot more aggressive than it has been, and that does not mean evangelizing.
Nope.
That does not mean, it means that the things that they actually believe in, like social justice and equality and fighting poverty, need to be front and center in the liberal agenda. I think that nobody can doubt that, and they have a special obligation to say, and this is part of our mission.
This is part of our values as people of faith. Absolutely.
Right, period. And that this is what
unapologetically.
This is what the faith is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be anti-Semitic bullshit. It's not supposed to be anti-gay bullshit.
And it's supposed to be anti-woman bullshit.
Right. And I know there's a lot of our atheist listeners out there just roll their eyes and say, but you're all fucked up and it's all bad. And that's fine. That's great. We can all fight for the policy positions.
Yep.
All day long, and then we can argue about religion over beers later. But I don't think anybody's going to doubt that, human rights, voting rights, civil rights, ecology, and a fair economy are things that we all can't agree on and all can't move forward in our own way.
But I do find it funny when atheist evangelists try to convert me.
Yeah. I know.
Anyway, give up your sky god, Blue Gal. Come on.
Yeah. That's why they invented agnostics. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing shameful of saying, I don't know. I have my doubts. Either way, but that's entirely up to you. We don't sit here in judgment. That's for the sky god.
We do sit here and do. We do news roundups.
We do news roundups. That's true.
The Bidening continues.
Yes, it does. After you, Blue Gal.
The Biden administration restarted its free COVID-19 test program as cases have increased roughly 55% since Thanksgiving. Middle child just got home today and said the whole campus has had COVID this fall.
Yep.
Everybody, shots, no shots, everybody's had COVID. Households can order 4 free tests at covidtests.gov. The program was paused in September after distributing over 600 million tests, which put the administration on pace to deplete its stockpile before winter without new funding from Congress.
Speaking of things that should be depleted, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis asked his state's Supreme Court to convene a grand jury to, quote, investigate crimes and wrongdoing committed against Floridians related to COVID-19 vaccines. Vaccines, those horrible, horrible vaccines that saved millions and millions of lives. DeSantis provided no specifics because it's a witch hunt. You don't have specifics in a witch hunt about what wrongdoing a grand jury would investigate, but suggested that pharmaceutical companies needed to provide more data so independent researchers, nut jobs, can study the side effects from vaccines. DeSantis also shared plans to establish a Public Health Integrity and Un-American Activity Committee, that part I added, to counter CDC guidance, baselessly claiming that, quote, anything they put out, you just assume at this point it's not worth the paper it's printed on. Reached for comment, Dr. Anthony Fauci said he, quote, doesn't have a clue what DeSantis hopes to accomplish.
Yeah, what does DeSantis want to do with this? I don't know, but I think we all know.
I think he needs to be even further to the crazy right of Trump on something, and this will be it.
Yeah, and this has a definite whiff of Arizona panda poop on the ballots.
Yeah,
that's where I am on that. The 3-person attorney disciplinary committee concluded that there was, quote, clear and convincing evidence, unquote, that Rudy Giuliani acted unethically when he filed a lawsuit to block certification of the results in the 2020 presidential election, and have recommended that Rudy Giuliani be disbarred in Washington, D.C.
Oh, the truth is all over your face, Rudy Giuliani. Oh, that's just your hair dye. Well, it's high time that America's mayor disappear into prison or just into the oblivion of history. He has probably torched his career more thoroughly down to the subatomic level than any of the other clowns around Donald Trump. And we all watched it happen live on television. 31% of voters still hold a favorable view of Donald Trump. This is his lowest favorability rating in more than 7 years. Still.
From CNN, a Twitter poll created by Elon Musk asking whether he should, quote, step down as head of Twitter, ended early Monday morning with most respondents voting in the affirmative. Musk had said he would abide by the results of the unscientific poll, which began Sunday evening and concluded with 57.5% voting yes, 42.5% voting no. More than 17 million votes were cast in the informal referendum on his chaotic leadership of Twitter, which has been marked by mass layoffs, the replatforming of suspended accounts that had violated Twitter's rules, a suspension of journalists who cover him, and whiplash policy changes made and reversed in real time.
And there's a rumor that he called Pennsylvania and said, look, guys, I only need 11 million votes here. I only need 11 million votes. Come on. It's Georgia, 11 million votes.
Pennsylvania, I only need 11 million votes.
Yeah. This is the story of the talented Mr. Santos. So strap in because it's exciting. It turns out that incoming Republican Representative George Santos has falsified pretty much his entire life. Falsified where he worked, where he went to college. Employers and alma maters Santos listed have no record of him, including Citigroup and Goldman Sachs, Baruch College, and New York University. Other parts of his resume appear to be largely fictional, according to the report. There's no record of his purported nonprofit animal rescue, and even claims that he lost employees at the Pulse nightclub shooting are disputed. I should mention that George Santos is the first openly gay Republican elected to Congress in history. And it turns out...
We don't know if he's lying about that either.
I don't know anything about, but he was clear about it in his campaign apparently, and he was the bright. See, look at the tolerant people we elect. See, we have a gay too. Oh, he made up his entire history, including claiming that he lost people at the Pulse nightclub shooting to shield himself from criticism. Man, continuing, there is no evidence he lives at the address he's registered to vote at. There is no evidence of the $80 million family investment firm that he claims he manages. The backstory he tells about his mother is also a lie, along with the Pulse nightclub shooting story in which several of his employees died.
Was he hired by Roger Stone to run for this seat, and they just invented a story for him?
He's run before. And this is a failure at all levels. It is a failure.
Well, it's sure a failure of the Florida Democratic Party to do any vetting of this person.
No, New York.
Oh, he's in New York? Oh, you said Colts nightclub. I thought he was in Florida, but he's in New York.
No, he's just making shit up. I mean, he's everywhere, Blue Gal. He's everywhere. No, he made a bunch of shit up about his past, about people he knew. Florida Democratic I'm sorry, you got me doing it now. Yeah, New York Democratic Party researchers need to have a long sit-down talk about why
the New York
didn't.
Democratic Party is just messed up. They messed up so many things.
You know what
that's ridiculous. And the media should be horsewhipped over this too.
Yeah, but now the question
is
this
out a couple weeks before he's going to be sworn in as a House member.
Well, the open question is, and I think I know the answer to this, is what is his life going to be like now that this is out in the open before he even walks in the door?
He's not going to lose any committee seats.
No, I can't imagine. I think they'll pat him on the back. I think the story will be, the liberal New York Times did a hit job on this fine gay man.
He won his election fair and square. The voters of his district know what they're doing.
Right. And this is all a hit job.
How dare you question the wisdom of his voters?
From the deep state. The liberal deep state is trying to destroy.
This is a deep state conspiracy because he's a Republican.
Man. He's a gay Republican. Why are they trying to take down this good gay Republican man who was just elected from New York, for goodness sakes? Yeah. So we know where this is going to go. Anyway.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. All the things.
Each week we post to our Facebook page and website an Internet Kitty sent in by you, the listeners. We have another pair of dogs, Driftglass.
Oh, my God.
I'm sorry. I've been falling in love with all these dogs lately. This week's Internet Kitty, more dogs, Liza and Griff. Liza is a 17-year-old dog and Griff is a puppy who tries very hard to get Liza to play with him, but literally Liza is too old for this shit. And she sure looks like it in this photo. Look, we got you, Liza. We understand. And of course, Liza and Griff eat Freshly Poured Dog Food, our fake sponsor. Whether you serve Pet Store Perfection or Dollar Store Dreck, your dog will either run to the food bowl right away, jumping and leaping, it's time to eat, it's time to eat, it's time to eat, or limp into the kitchen on their own time because of the rheumatism. Don't rush me now.
Don't rush me. I'll get there. Don't worry.
Either way, your dogs will demand that the food they eat is only freshly poured. Freshly poured, freshly poured. Oh, my Lord, it's freshly poured. And you can visit Liza and Griff. We love both of them at our Facebook page or website. And you can send your Internet Kitty, dog, or other pet to us at our email address, proleftpodcast@gmail.com, where you can also write to both of us. Send us some kitties. And please put Internet Kitty in the subject line of your email.
Yes.
Even if you send us a fish, put Internet Kitty in the subject line of your email, please. Feel free to write us. We love hearing from you. Be aware that if you write us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email or U.S. Postal Service, go Postal Unions, letter on the air unless you say otherwise. Thank you for the Christmas cards. Yes. Those of you that have sent some to us, oh my goodness. We are just so grateful. Don't forget our gourmet coffee guideline. If you can afford to buy an espresso-based beverage for yourself, buy one for us. This is not charity. This is actually our job. Approximately 2% of our listeners support this podcast with a contribution, and you can too. See our website, proleftpod.com, for details. We've got PayPal, postal address information, Patreon, GoFundMe, Buy Me a Coffee, which is kind of a, quick $5. You can do that.
You know what they don't have? Buy me some clear fluid Jell-O.
You only need that for one day, though.
I know, for one day. Come on, man.
Buy me some clear liquid diet for 24 hours.
24 hours.
All of it is there at proleftpod.com. Please share our show on social media. And if you love this podcast, send us $5. That's a great way to let us know that you liked a specific show. And thank you for doing that. Hey, Driftglass, how are the Internet Kitties doing this week?
Well, Blue Gal, the Internet Kitties have awarded their annual See Ya, Wouldn't Want to Be Ya award to Kevin McCarthy. Have fun storming the castle, Kevin.
Let's think about living. Think about living. Let's think about loving. Think about Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the bopping and the lovey-dovey. Let's forget about the wine and the crying, the shooting and the dying, and the fellow with the switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
The Professional Left podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license. Copyright 2022, DGBG Productions Incorporated.